India-United States relations, also known as Indian-American relations or Indo-American relations, refers to the international relations between India and the United States. Prominent leaders of India's freedom movement had friendly relations with the United States which continued well after independence from the United Kingdom in 1947. In 1954, the United States made Pakistan a Central Treaty Organization treaty ally. India cultivated strategic and military relations with the Soviet Union to counter Pakistan United States relations. In 1961, India became a founding member of the Non-Aligned Movement to avoid involvement in the Cold War power play between the United States and the Soviet Union. The Nixon administration's support for Pakistan during the Indo-Pakistani War of 1971 affected relations until the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991. In the 1990s, Indian foreign policy adapted to the unipolar world and developed closer ties with the United States. In the 21st century, Indian foreign policy has sought to leverage India's strategic autonomy in order to safeguard sovereign rights and promote national interests within a multipolar world. Under the administrations of Presidents George W. Bush, upgraded representation in trade and investment forums pandemic, after Trump threatened retaliation against India if it did not comply with terminating the export embargo on hydroxychloroquine. The relationship has soured under the Biden administration after a plea by Ada Punawara, CEO of Serum Institute of India, to lift the embargo on export of raw materials needed to ramp up production of COVID-19 vaccines, was rejected. According to Gallup's annual World Affairs survey, India is perceived by Americans as their sixth favorite nation in the world, with 71% of Americans viewing India favorably in 2015. Gallup polls found that 74% of Americans viewed India favorably in 2017. 72% in 2019, and 75% in 2020. In 2017, bilateral trade grew by 9.8% to reach $126.1 billion United States dollars. India's exports to the US stood at $76.7 billion United States dollars, while USA's exports to India stood at $49.4 billion United States dollars. Great Britain and France had territories in the Americas as well as the Indian subcontinent. In 1778, when France declared war against Britain, fighting broke out between British and French colonies in India. This marked the beginning of the Second Anglo-Mysore War. Hyder Ali, the Sultan of the Kingdom of Mysore, allied himself with the French. From 1780 to 1783, Franco-Mysorean forces fought in several campaigns against the British in western and southern India, in several places such as Mahé and Mangalore. On June 29, with both sides weakened, the British dispatched HMS Madhya to surrender, with letters to the French stating the American Revolutionary War was over. The Treaty of Paris was drafted on 30 November 1782. Months before the siege of Cuddalore, but news did not reach India until 7 months later. Due to the delay of communications to India, the Treaty of Paris was finally signed on 3 September 1783 and was ratified by the US Congress a few months later. Under the terms of the treaty, Britain returned Pondicherry back to the French and Cuddalore was returned to the British. The flag of the East India Company is said to have inspired the Grand Union flag of 1775, ultimately inspiring the current flag of the United States. As both flags were of the same design, Mysorean rockets were also used in the Battle of Baltimore, and are mentioned in the Star-Spangled Banner, the national anthem of the United States, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air. The relationships between India in the days of the British Raj and the United States were thin. Swami Vivekananda promoted yoga and Vedanta in the United States at the World's Parliament of Religions in Chicago. During the World's Fair in 1893, Mark Twain visited India in 1896 and described it in his travelogue following the equator with both revulsion and attraction, before concluding that India was the only foreign land he dreamed about or longed to see again. Regarding India, Americans learned more from English writer Rudyard Kipling. Mahatma Gandhi had an important influence on the philosophy of non-violence promoted by American civil rights movement leader Martin Luther King Jr. in the 1950s. In the 1930s and early 1940s, Roosevelt voiced strong support to the Indian independence movement despite being allies with Britain. The first significant immigration from India before 1965 involved Sikh farmers going to California. In the early 20th century, during World War II, India became the main base for the American China-Burma-India theater in the war against Japan. Tens of thousands of American servicemen arrived, bringing all sorts of advanced technology and currency. They left in 1945. Serious tension erupted over American demands, led by U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt, that India be given independence, a proposition Churchill vehemently rejects.